I wanted to do is introduce myself and exactly what I do and how all these policies and procedures connect directly to the small business, which is all we talk about. Really, for me, it's not about Democrats, Republicans. It's about what makes sense for the business community in transportation. And it's about participating on contracts that are in transportation, that are federally funded, that have DBE goal. This is where I come in. If there was no such thing as DBE goal, I wouldn't exist. So policies like that are set as far as small communities and DBE participation, we don't look at it as, well, this, is it for Democrat, is it for Republican? We look at it, what is good for small business community, because that's how we thrive. I have 12 employees, and they all have insurance, health, dental. That's how I attract people. So I don't, everybody says to me, well, how do you get people? Do you get them as contractors? That I can't do contracts, I have insurance. They have to be under my insurances, so there are certain things I have to establish as a small company, which is the same thing that any big company would do, except they have to do it at a much smaller scale, which sometimes costs more. So if there's a way to collaborate between different DBEs to have more of a buying power would help hugely as well. The second question I get all the time is, well, if I take you on as a DBE for a contract, would that cost me more money? So we have to provide meaningful scope of work on contracts that require DB content. Otherwise, companies like Siemens or Amtrak or Bombardier will say, this DB stuff costs us too much money and we can't take on these companies. So what I do is provide meaningful scopes of work on contracts that require DB content. So we work on propulsion systems, on communication system on the train, on braking system, door control systems. We provide labor when it comes to maintenance, service, repair, really true work when it comes to trains, light rail vehicles, and also buses, right-of-way, revenue collection. The interesting part about it is and I've talked to Thomas about it, what's frustrating around the country is how the goals are set. And I know that everyone says that the goals are just a goal. It's okay if the goal is reached above even what's required. The problem is if the goal is set at 4%, 4% is all it's going to be reached. And at 4%, it's only reached for what I would call things that are not important part of the scopes of work, because relationships don't have to be created for smaller goals. So what would happen is let's say there's a 4% goal, a $300 million contract that's federally funded. It's usually going to happen with a shipping company. Somebody can print copies for their manuals, and it's very hard to compete against that because any original equipment manufacturer would love to take that without creating any relationships that can come up with DBEs. They would just do, it's not even a pass-through, it's more of a handout. Here's a couple of $1,000, can you go do this? And they reach their goal and everybody's happy. So we're trying to do something a lot more innovative. We're looking at it, what is it that we can do to create true, meaningful, long-term relationships that would be viable for other small businesses to come in? And one example that I give, what happens in Boston versus, let's say, other states, there's a contract in Boston right now that's for light rail vehicle overhaul. That's probably worth $200 to $300 million, depending on what the options are. And the goal is at 5%. And I was told the reason it's 5% is because that's the only viable DBEs they have to bid it. And there's another contract, very similar in nature, also with light rail overhaul in Maryland, that's at 13%. So now the work I'm performing in Maryland for 13% is truly a partnership with the prime doing the work in their facility. And they're bidding on the same contract in Boston, and I'm a third-tier sub there because of the 4%. So, and it's the same exact people working with Maryland. It all depends on the goals and what is required by them in how it's structured. So if there's a consortium that we can build of smaller companies that can work together to increase the goals and to provide meaningful scopes of work that don't increase the dollar amounts that would cost the company to bid it, that's where the true meaning of all the programs are.